wherever you're dialing in from. It's morning here, and I'm actually in Melbourne, where Pablo lives. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing Pablo's work. He does amazing stuff. I've known him for a number of years. He's a good friend of mine. But I'll hand it over to you, Pablo, to introduce yourself and maybe show us some of your work, buddy.
Yeah, sure, man. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. Welcome, everyone. Today is going to be pretty fun. So I just want to give you kind of like a sense of the type of things and themes and things that I try to create, or that I like to create, so that you have an idea of like maybe how I can help you moving forward. So I don't know if you can see the website with some of the artwork at the moment.
I can see
cool.
it.
So this is like my ArtStation website. This is the type of things that I like to create, like this type of like creature stuff and characters, very sort of like whimsical, fantasy, sci-fi thing. And for the most part, I tend to do characters, but I also like to create sometimes hard surface stuff. And some of the things that I do, I share it, or not most of the things that I do, actually, I share them on my social medias and my academy online, which is, I'll just show this. If you go to pablander.com, this is kind of like my whole handle in social media, pablander.com. This is this website. It has the links to all this stuff. So you can go to my portfolio, what I was just showing you before, my online academy, and a bunch of other things. So yeah, and feel free to reach out to me through here as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm a 3D concept artist, and that's basically what I'm going to show you, the power and the value of 3D Modeler today in that context of prototyping and creating really, really fast things really easily using 3D Modeler.
Brilliant. Actually, I didn't even introduce myself, so because I'm clearly not Flynn Tracy, but my name's Owen Hunt, and for those people that don't know, I work within the Substance 3D and Immersive team. I head up education partnerships. I have a background in sort of 3D as well. And today, you know, we're going to go through and just really keep it super high level for people that are new to 3D. This is a really good overview of Substance 3D Modeler, which has recently gone back into beta, actually, so anyone can use it. It's completely free to use. And Pablo's going to show you how easy it is. My kids use it at home. It's very organic, and I'm sure Pablo's going to talk about you know, the tools and the features inside of it. Did you want to sort of show us what we're going to, like the asset that we want to cover, or you want to keep that as a bit of a surprise, Pablo?
No, I will share it with you, because that will give you an idea. Might not be exactly the same, but roughly we will aim for that. Here we go.
If you have any questions, like even if it's terminology or something that you don't understand, feel free to throw it in the chat, and we can answer it straight away. So you don't have to wait till the end.
Yeah, you can interrupt me at any time, and I can just.
Such a cool piece. I love it. I love it. So this could be used for in what industries, Pablo?
So
obviously not footwear design.
No, I mean, you can use it in anything really, and I think that's the thing that really attracts me about the simplicity, but like how powerful it is, like the simplicity of the software. So this is something that I created in about 25 minutes, and I think anyone can do the same thing once you get familiar with the tools and, you know, certain little things, which is what I'm going to cover, so that it makes it really easy. But I'm going to show you some examples of the different things that I've been trying. Basically the things that I've been playing around with, creating with 3D Modeler. So the idea is to create something similar to this in this stream. So I'll cover the modeling and the tools so that you can follow along and do the same thing, something like this. And tomorrow we're going to do the same sort of thing, but in Painter. So we're going to cover some texturing, how to export it, how bring a model or an idea from 3D Modeler into Painter on 3D Painter. So pretty cool stuff. I'll show you just to answer that question. So this is something else that I did yesterday. Again, about like half an hour, simple modeling, just blocks, cubes, spheres, and exported this, automatically creates UVs, send it into Painter, create a bunch of materials, and then render it like that. So it's kind of like a sci-fi coffee machine. Again, so it's like for product design, this sort of like industry is really, really good, but you can use it in anything. So I like it because I can use it in my creature and character design. So this is a crab that I was working on. So this is the model from 3D Modeler. I do all the blocking, all the setup in Modeler. Once I'm happy, and this is also another thing, because I have the Quest 2, I think. Yeah, I think it's called Quest 2. This one, not sure.
Yeah, it's a Quest 2.
This VR.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the Quest 2, it makes it really easy and very intuitive once you know the tools to move things around and block things out, and then you can send it to other software if you want to render somewhere else. Or in this case, I do a lot of things as well with ZBrush, so I send it to ZBrush and do a little bit of detail. But most of the detail that you see here in the final sort of render are actually textures from 3D Painter as well. So all falls within the same sort of process, let's say, or workflow. So this is more organic, right? The other thing that you can do is like hard surface stuff like character, like this robot. This is 100% done in 3D Modeler, do in VR. And this is like a tiny distinction that I want to make. What we're going to be doing today is mostly in the desktop version. And this is what I would prefer to do when I'm working on things like hard surface things, because it makes it really, really easy with the gizmo. But when I'm doing like organic stuff, like the crab that I just showed you, I prefer VR because the tools also are very very intuitive to model and blocking things out in 3D. And the one on the right-hand side, the render of the robot is done, like the textures are from 3D Painter and is rendered in Stager, which is another awesome tool, very, very simple from the Adobe package. And finally, this is something else that I did that was trying in 3D Modeler. So kind of like a vehicle design, a bit of like organic stuff here, but mostly is hard surface. And I took this model, exactly the same. I didn't do retopology or anything. Exactly what I got from Modeler, and I put it into a scene with my character and created this sort of concept for this character right here. So you can use it in a bunch of different industries and a bunch of different things. In my case, I'm a concept artist, so I tend to do this type of simple assets, depending on how close you're gonna get to it, and then create a concept art out of this. And yeah, that's basically it. But what we're gonna be working on roughly today is something like that. So let's, unless there is any questions, we can jump straight into it. And I have some references in here that I collected from little devices that we can use as a starting point.
Couple of questions from me, Pablo, just before we move into it. When you said before about, you said a couple of words, and I just want to make sure that the viewers understand what they are. You said about UVs and you said about retopologizing.
Yeah.
Just kind of some of those concepts in a really basic format so the viewers can understand what that means.
Yeah, fair enough. So I don't know, can you see the modeler now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's jump into it and I'll cover those as I go through it. So this is Adobe 3D Modeler. Very, very simple stuff. You press Alt and left click just to move around, mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and then the middle mouse button when you hold the Alt key to pan around. So pretty simple stuff like any other software, really. The thing that you see here, all this kind of like checkered texture, that is the resolution or the grid, right? And that's how Modeler works. It's different from other kind of like 3D applications that you might be used to or know about. I use like this voxel modeling sort of thing. And the idea is that it's like a bunch of like squares. And if I want to create more detail, I just reduce the size of the squares or increase the amount of squares that you can see here, right? And when you export it, there is an option. I'll do it right now just to show you. When you click on export, you can tell Modeler to export as quads or triangles or raw mesh. I prefer to use quads so that it creates what is called the topology or retopologized thing. So it creates a model that you can use in other software. It's a lot easier and a lot cleaner, right? So that is what I talk about retopology. And also, let me just do something quickly. If I click on this checkbox here, generate UVs, what the software will do at the time of export is going to take the cube that I have here and it's going to unwrap it to make it, to create a map for 2D. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's basically taking a 3D object and unwrap it so that you can see the same object but in 2D. So you see all the faces spread out in a 2D environment, and that is that's the technicality of it. But I'm not going to cover any of that because, like I said, the software kind of like takes care of it when you do it. So there's no need to think about it and just like concentrate on building like cool stuff. That's it.
Yeah, awesome. Get rid of that technical stuff.
Yep. You don't have to think about those unless you really want to. You could if you wanted, but yeah, this is the point. Like the whole idea is just to do a really nice concept, and that's about it. So I'm gonna cover some of the really basic stuff. I have like some examples here. All right, so with this little thing here, I would say one of the the most important things to understand about 3D Modeler, how you can create really complex things, is by using very simple geometrical objects and subtract and add and intersect. So what I have right now is, if I click on this cube, it's just a cube, and this is the gizmo. I can just move things around. I can rotate it, blah, blah, blah. There's this tiny little white dot, which is the scale. So I can click and scale this out. And then I have like 4 spheres, right? They're full spheres. Just want to show you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is I'm going to select this sphere. I'm going to right click, and then you have these options here at the bottom, which are the booleans, right? I'm going to be using this quite a bit. So I just want to cover them straight away. And this is kind of like a contextual menu. So when you right click, you have the actions of whatever you have selected. So with this one, I'm going to click on this boolean operation. And you see, as soon as I do that, because I also have the live preview, you can toggle this on and off. This red indicates that this sphere is being subtracted, or is subtracting that volume from the cube. I can do the same thing for this one. Right click, and instead of using the subtraction, I can use this to intersect. So if I click on this one, you'll see automatically everything changes, because it is taking the volume of the sphere and the volume of the cube, and wherever they intersect, that's when this is happening. So I'm going to undo that, because that's not what I want. Let's use this one. This is the split. So the split doesn't allow you to see anything necessarily, but is yellow. So that means that wherever this sphere is sort of like intersecting the cube, is going to split that section. So it's similar to what I just showed you, but it allows you to have more control over the 2 pieces that you're going to end up at the end. And then this one, I'm going to use the union, which is green. And I'm going to leave this one as it is, just to show you something else. So this is pretty cool, because then I can select my cube, or this square thingy, right click, and then you see that because I have some of the booleans, whatever it might be, I can click on apply. If I clear, everything is going to be clear. And sorry, let me just do it again.
So you use these methods when you're just modeling in that. These are your go-to methods, Pablo?
Yeah, this is kind of like the basics. Like once you understand these basic things, you can do really complex stuff. So I just thought I'll cover this, a bit of like the difference between symmetry and repetition, which is also really cool. And then how to manipulate things with groups. And once you understand these 3 things, like kind of like how to get into the layers and get out, which is it's called scope in and scope out. That's it. You can run with anything. You can create anything you want. Wow, so cool. If I go ahead and click on apply right now, you see, this gets this like flickering thing, because it is kind of coplanar, so it's still living in that area. So I'm going to select that and delete, just pressing the delete on my keyboard. Same with this one, and same with this one. So this is the resulting, this is the result of the Boolean operation. So this one right here, that was the green one, the union, is now merged, or is part of this mesh. Actually, it wasn't. Let me merge them together. There we go. So now it's part of the same thing. All right, this one is obviously cut it out, and this one, the one that intersects, this is the one that I use for creating panels and add more complexity to a simple shape, just like to cut things and make it look more sci-fi, for example. And this one just creates that volume from that sphere, right? So you end up with 2 different pieces that you can manipulate. So that's what I found like really useful. And that's about it. This one, I left it as a separate one, because I want to show you something else. What I'll do is I'm going to click on this little manipulator here, and this is just to constrain the movement or the translation of something in one axis. So you can just move it like that, and you know for a fact that it's always going to maintain that axis, like the z-axis in this case. So I'll put it here, and I'm going to select both. So Shift and select this one. Right click, and this is what I did for the other sphere. So I'm going to click on merge. So merge, what it does is going to take two objects and it's going to make them part of the same, right? And this is where the resolution or those little squares come into place. So if you hover over these minus or pluses, that is to increase or decrease the resolution. So you can add more or less details. In this case, I don't have that many details, so I'm going to click on less, and you see it just changes the size, right? And if I click on merge, hopefully you can see, like, you can compare the difference. It's very, very low res, but that's exactly what you want when you want to manipulate multiple objects. And that's about it. So I'll cover that, more stuff as I go through with the actual model. This is just another example to show you the symmetry. So these are a couple of cubes right here. This is using symmetry. So basically, if you want to create something that has the same thing or like a mirror on both sides, you can right click, and in this like butterfly icon, which is the same thing that you find in Photoshop, for example, you can click on that and enable symmetry. You see that plane right in the middle. Once you applied the object, then you can just rotate the whole thing around, right? So this is kind of like the thing that was the hardest for me to understand at the beginning, because you also have this thing called repetition, and it's ultimately the same thing. So if you click on this one, this is repetition. You see, I have repetition enabled, and in fact, let me just push this one down so you see these two side by side. So what you see on the screen is exactly the same thing, right? There's no difference. The difference is that when one on the one on the bottom is using the symmetry, and the symmetry is kind of like allows you to sculpt and create things symmetrically as you do it. Whereas the repetition, you cannot necessarily sculpt at the same time that, let's say, the other side is doing the same thing. It's kind of like an instance that happened at the end. So, for example, if in this case I can just rotate things around, if I click on this one that is just a repetition, right? What I'm going to do is actually rotate the actual object. So if I turn this off, you see, it's just a single object, right? So anything that I do with this, I can scale it, whatever I want, right click and do repetition is going to repeat that on the other side. And just like I did with this one, you can do the same thing with radial symmetry or radial repetition, which is awesome. So the radial symmetry, again, it allows you to sculpt symmetrically in a radial fashion like this and creates, that's what I have in here. And the repetition does the same thing, but it's more interactive. So I prefer sometimes to use repetition, but symmetry is really powerful. So with repetition, I can just go ahead and say, increase this a few more times. We're going to be using this quite a bit as well. Well, a couple of times. So you can just decrease, increase. You can scale, right? You can move things away. And you see it does it from that sort of center point, and that is the center of the world, right? So that's an important thing. So if I start like sculpting something around here and I add repetition, it's just going to do it based on that center of the word.
Actually,
but
Flynn,
once I finish,
I was just going to say, Pablo, Flynn had a good point. Like a lot of these, I guess, functions are very similar to Illustrator, where you can add, have boolean operations and symmetry and all the rest of it. So, for people that are not familiar with 3D, actually, a lot of these concepts are very similar to what you would find inside of Illustrator, actually, but in a 2D format, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I like. If you have like this sort of reference, if you're an illustrator and you have that reference, you kind of like say, oh yeah, I've used this repetition before, and easy, right?
Yeah.
It's just like in a 3D environment. The only thing that I'm gonna mention about this is if I go ahead and right click, I can just go ahead and click on merge. If I click on merge, is now exactly the same object as I had for the symmetry. So you'll see I can move and rotate the whole thing around, and it's not going to it's not going to do the repetition. All right. And finally, in terms of things that is important to know, this is a very simple example of a tire, but it is using a bunch of objects. So this one is using the repetition. So I can scale this one around, I can rotate it, I can place it a little bit better, right? Because it's using that same repetition, and I can increase that and decrease it, etc. Right? I also have like a simple tube. I have this that was created as well with repetition, but with symmetry, and then it's like a single object, so I can move that around wherever I want to. Then I have a cylinder, and then I have kind of like a torus thing, and these sort of like ridges, I created that with subtraction as well. So I'll show you all of that. So this example is just to show you another very important thing to understand, which are the groups, right? So right now, if I click on this and I want to move it, it will be really hard to sort of like move one at a time and then the other one and make sure that it's in the right place. So you can click one and click on the shift icon or shift key and sort of like connect everything, but I'll show you what's going to happen. So perfect. I have everything selected, and I'm going to move this away. And you see it sort of like exploded because remember the repetition happens based on the center of the world. So something very simple that you can do is create groups. So I can group these together.
Is that like just having a folder type thing and putting everything inside a folder so it's got that top? Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. And I think the icon is not like a folder, but it's just a group. So if I click now on this one, you see it selects both at the same time, and I can just move them about like this, and it doesn't sort of distort that radial repetition. Now I can do the same thing if I click on this one and this one. right click, group. You can actually create everything in a single group, but I'm going to show you something else. Now this one and this one, actually this and this, right click, group, and then this one and this one, right click, group. You don't have to do it that way. This is just to show you something else. So now if I want to move this entire tire, I can just click on it. I can click on this rotation, and I have this nice way of rotating. Now, if you hold the shift key, it will snap to these sort of integer numbers. So like every 5 degrees or 15 degrees. But if you go inner, like if you go closer to the center, you see how the number of dots change. So that is to do it in a little bit more of a, incremental steps. So I'm just going to go for 90 degrees. That's it. So, and I'm going to place it in here. Now, what's awesome about this is if I want to edit this now, let's say the repetition that I had here, I can select it and I can double click to go in. So this is it's not the scoping in, but it's like getting into the group. So I can double click and it gives me to this sort of second group. I can double click again. Now go into the next group, double click again, go into the next group. So this is a little bit more
like a hierarchy. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the really cool thing. If I go into this one, you'll see I still maintain that radial symmetry, but it is inheriting the position of the entire group. So it's really, really cool. So you can just do all these edits and press escape to get out of the groups, and that's it. And then after, if you want to sort of combine things and just make things easier, you can select, let's say, this whole thing and just go merge. And so that thing is going to do the process of blending all those things together. So you cannot edit them anymore, but it's a single object. So it's not a group anymore, right?
Got it.
That's about it. Now, the main thing that you can see here, like different, is that the rest of the objects are kind of like grayed out or a darker color. That is the scoping in method. So I'm going to press escape. This is called scene assembly, which is like you have a bunch of these objects and then you can select them and move them around and essentially assemble your scene. But if you want to edit something, let's say this, let's say the tire, I need to double click on it, right? And you see now I'm in sculpting, so I'm inside the tire. And then I'm going to use the tools to, let's say, add clay. So this one on the left-hand side, it creates this cube, and I'm going to move this cube like that. All right, something like this. Nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to press the tab key on my keyboard, and that's going to switch between adding clay and subtracting. So right now, the clay tool is adding a cube. Pretty self-explanatory. You can change that, actually. You can just make it a cylinder, whatever you want. Let's make it a cylinder, just for fun. Then you press the tab key, and you see how it jumps to the eraser tool. Again, very familiar tools, like if you're using Photoshop or anything like that. And it's red, and you can see the intersection of what's going to happen. So in order to apply that clay, either adding or subtracting, you press the spacebar. So that's it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you see, it just changes the whole thing because this object had this radial symmetry, right? So I know that I'm probably throwing a lot of information right now, but this is just kind of like the basics, how the 3D model works. So you have Boolean operations, you have these radial symmetries, and you have groups, and you have scoping. But I think it's going to make a lot more sense when we actually jump into actually creating something. So I want to start a new scene, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this point. But I know I gave you a lot of info. We're going to start simple, and then hopefully those concepts make it will be a little bit more clearer.
Yeah, no, there's no questions at the moment. I think we're good to go. I think it's
cool.
What is
All
it?
right.
12:25.
So I'm going to start.
So time's good.
Yep, I'm going to start with a cube. So I'm going to click on cube. Right. Again, I like to work with relatively low res, but if you want to increase it, you can right click and click on this plus to add a bit more. I think this is fine. Again, we can scale this like so. And when you are creating something, you have these extra white dots that allows you to change the dimensions. And you can change the primitive or like this object at any point. So you can make it a cylinder, whatever you want. And it retains that sort of stretch or like cut that you're doing. So I'm going to start with something like this for my box. And you have these other parameters here that are unique to this. So if I change to the torus, you see this doesn't have anything. Or if I change to the cylinder, they're like slightly different. So you can play around with this. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to add a little bit of roundness. So you see the corners get rounded around a little bit.
Nice.
Something like that. And then I'm going to use the fillet. And the fillet is going to also give me that nice bevel at the top and bottom. And what's really cool about it is you can continue to edit that and it will be maintained. So I'm going to go for something like this to create that sort of sci-fi box thingy. And I'm going to press the spacebar. So what that happens when I click on spacebar is that now I drop that object into the or paint it or added it into the viewport. But you still have this object in here. So now I'm going to press escape.
Just to recap on that, Pub. So that's like going, okay, I've modeled this shape, and now I'm good. So you hit the space bar, and it kind of goes, cool. I'm committing to that. Now I'm going to do the next one. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. I guess the important part is that when you're committing and pressing a space bar, you're dropping a single instance. But if you I'm going to do it one more time. So if I press a space bar and then start dragging, I'm literally painting like that. I can go up and down, right? So I can do, like
that's holding
like an environment.
The space
bar, yeah. It's like you have whatever object you decide to go for, hold the space bar, and wherever you move it, you're going to create the object based on that. But in this case, I just want to have like an instance. So I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to press escape, and you see this is the object. Now, this is very important. If I click on the object, you see I don't have that option to go and scale this other than the uniform scale. That is important because if you say, you know what, this is a little bit too narrow or too big, in my opinion, it's better or easier to just create a new one. That's how easy this is. But there are ways to use the move brush to sort of like pull it together. But I think this is easy. All right, so now let's go ahead and click on the object again, and we're going to scope in. So if I double click, I get into the object to edit it. So double click, and you see I get more tools, right? If I click on escape, right now it's a little bit hard to see because it's the only object, but you can tell by, you don't have anything selected, right? So I'm going to double click to scope in, and this is the same object that I had before. So I'm going to push it up so you can see it. I'm going to scale it, right? And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it. I'm going to create kind of like the top and bottom of this box. So I'm going to go to the eraser tool, and you can do this by clicking, the same thing that I showed you before, right click and use these tools, or you can do it directly from this erasing tool. So I'm going to click on this split, right? And the split tool is basically doing that. Whatever this volume, the red one, is intersecting the other one, is going to cut it. So I'm going to make the top of the box a little bit larger. And you know what? Just to make sure that it's a nice and clean cut, I'm going to remove the fillet and move it up.
Nice and sharp. Yeah.
Nice and sharp. So yeah. So this red line, this is where it's going to intersect. So I'm going to press a space bar now, and I just action this, and I'm going to press escape bar. So this is a very important action that you should get familiar with if you want to try this out. The whole idea of adding things is scoping in and scoping out. Once you get your head around that, it's so easy. So now I have two objects that I can select independently, right? So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to rotate it, maybe holding the shift key 120 degrees, so that I know that if I add another object, I want to align it with this. I know it's 120 degrees. And I'm going to use this square to move it in that axis, so I know it's going to be aligned with the other one. I want to put it around here. All right. Now, this is one of the coolest things about working with Modeler, that whatever you have selected, and if you want to add more stuff, it will inherit the rotation and the position. So if I double click on this one, again, to go in, to scope into this object, right? You see that object that I had before, even if I still have it as a split tool,
across, yeah,
it is followed across. So it's really cool. So what I'm going to do, maybe just to make it a bit interesting, is scale this down and maybe push this up a bit. And I'm going to switch to erase. So the normal boolean operation. In other words, this one right here, right? And maybe scale it down a bit just to create a kind of like a rim for that box. And I can also dynamically change the roundness so that it sort of matches that a little bit better, because before it was kind of like weird. Something like this. Again, press a space bar. And what I just did, if I press escape bar, is to edit that box and create that nice rim. That's like, to be honest, that's the whole workflow. You just have objects you add or subtract, and then you can create complexity from very, very simple shapes. So let's go ahead and create something for like some kind of screen here at the top. I'm going to click on this clay tool, and this is another important thing. So right now I have nothing scoped in, or like basically I'm in scene assembly. So every color is the same. I remember if I scope in, the other one kind of like it gets a little bit darker. So I'm now in scene assembly. If I click on clay, what's going to happen is that Modeler is going to give me a new tool to add more to it. And it's just going to be its own object. So that's what I want to make sure I do to show you something else. So I'm going to move this up. And I'm going to use taper, actually. So with the cube selected, I'm going to use this taper tool. And it does like a nice taper. Maybe add a little bit more roundness to it. Like so. And I'm going to rotate it. So click on the rotation. And again, pressing the shift key, going 120 degrees. Oh, sorry. Let's move it up. This is I think this is like a tiny bug that if it is like a new tool or like a new object and you press shift, it's basically going to send it back to the original thing. But this is an easy workaround. Anyway, all I want to do is scale it this way and maybe that way. So essentially what I want to do is create a tool, or like the shape of a tool that then I can subtract. So I'm going to press the space bar now, right? And then escape. So now I have this other object. Cool. So let's go ahead and rotate it. Now we can do it nice and easy and push it closer here. All right, so this is where the screen is going to live. I'm going to right click. Again, you can use the tools like I showed you before. If you have the clay tool, you can do the erasing, or you can create objects and then use them to subtract, like I showed you at the very beginning. So that's the same case. So right click, I'm going to make this a boolean tool. And because I have live preview, I can see how much I'm going to actually subtract from. So I can do like something like that, maybe a bit larger. And once I'm happy, actually, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to push this down here. So you see this object is actually subtracting from both the top and the bottom. If I go ahead and click on right click and click apply, it's going to subtract from both. But if I want to leave it where it is, but I only want to affect one, all I have to do is select it and do right click, and it will, right click and apply it, and it will only apply it to whatever you have selected. That's a really cool little tip. So I'm going to leave it as it is, select this one, right click, apply. So you see now we have that subtraction. And whenever you see this weird sort of, artifacts, that just means, it just means that there are two objects or two, let's say, planes that are coplanar or like right at the same time, the same space. So I'm going to select that one and delete it, just normal delete. And we have that. And I don't know what this is, this color, but I'm just going to paint it with this paint tool. Oh, no.
Whoa.
My bad.
It always happens on a live stream, doesn't it, Pablo? No, it's really interesting. So with those sort of basic, I guess, functions that you've just showed us, that's kind of the skills that you've used. Oh, there you go. You got it back. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's all good. I just made a tiny mistake.
That's okay.
It crashed. It's crashed, but it has a nice recovery option. Sorry,
awesome.
What were you saying?
No, I was just going. So those sort of features that you've showed us, and the tricks that that's your tool set that you use for all that stuff that you showed us at the start in terms of all the stuff that you've created. That's all you've kind of using as those techniques.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, like I said, the hardest thing to get into, which is not that hard really, because everything is very intuitive, but the hardest thing to understand is that idea of you're scoping in to work on edit one piece and it's scoping out. So right now I'm seeing assembly. If I want to edit this, I double click and now I'm editing this, right? Like I just painted this thing.
So just to define scope, to define scope, is that kind of saying, okay, that's the object, I want to edit that object, and basically you double.
So what I'm going to do instead of just like merging all these things is at this point, I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on new layer. So new layer is creating its own transparent box so I can edit this after. So I'm going to click on new layer and you'll see it just hides or not hides, like makes everything darker. And I'm going to press spacebar now and then escape. So now I literally have three objects. I have this, and this one, just because it's in different layer. Something that might help you understand this a bit better with layers is this tiny thing here, the node properties. If you click on that one, I think if you select, let's say the world, it just tells you is world or layer 3, layer 2, layer 1.
Yeah, cool.
So you have, it's not like the same thing, let's say in Photoshop that you have like all your layers and you can just click on it, because it doesn't really work like that. I don't think it will be more confusing, I think. But it's just to give you an idea or like a reference if that's what you're doing. So we have about what, like half an hour left?
Yeah.
Or 20 minutes?
20 minutes, yeah.
Cool. So let's do some cool stuff now. So I'm gonna create kind of like a dial, and for that I'm gonna click on a new a new tool. And if I want to reset this back to the original, I can press the R to reset the rotation, and then R again on my keyboard to reset the position to the center. So I'm gonna switch to a cylinder, and again, it's not the best cylinder in the world, so I'm gonna reset it. There we go. And I'm gonna scale it down. So this is gonna be a dial, and I like to work like this. I like to just work kind of like in a tower sort of formation, so that if I want to use like radial symmetry and that sort of thing, it works fine. And then I just group it and bring it to whatever I need to. So for this, I'm gonna make fillet just to make it a bit nicer and rounder. I think that works fine. And I'm gonna press spacebar. Now again, I still have the same tool. I'm gonna reduce the fillet, and I'm gonna right click, and I'm gonna use repetition. Sorry, not repetition, symmetry. So let's go for radial symmetry. And let's move this one away.
Oh, cool.
Right. And let's also, actually, let's make it smaller. Well, there. And also larger. I'm going to right click and increase the repetition to...
Pablo.
Hello? Can you hear me all right?
Or is that me?
Let me know if you can hear me. Everything seems to be okay on my
end.
Okay,
you're right. Sorry, that was me.
Oh, good?
Yeah,
okay.
Good, sorry.
So yeah, I'm just going to add maybe 16 repetitions, right? So you see, this is really cool because it just gives you the ability to maybe subtract this and make like an interesting pattern in just a couple of clicks. So again, I'm going to press the tab on my keyboard, and those objects become subtracting objects. And I'm going to do it from the top just so I can see something around there, right? And that makes that like a really cool sort of effect. I'm going to press spacebar to apply that change or subtract those red bits.
No, you get that
and
nice
then press escape.
Corrugated
and then we have
edging. Yeah, nice. Hey, just
but you see, it's not like
it's not super smooth, is it? I was just going to say, just a quick question. Somebody was saying, oh, so it's like stamp. I was just going to, because we do have
stamps.
Yeah, we do have stamps. Maybe we can just we'll get through this first, but we can touch on that once we get through these buttons, maybe.
Yeah, like just quickly, this is made full of stamps.
Oh, wow.
All of the stamps that come.
Yeah, with
Modeler.
Yeah.
So you find all of these.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're really, really useful. I'll try to cover that at the end.
Yeah, cool.
So what I want to touch on this is when I start to realize, okay, I need more resolution. So I'm going to undo that. And right click, add more resolution, and then apply it again. So you see, nice is now nice and crisp.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. Now that we're here, what I'm going to do is, again, double click to scope in. I'm going to turn off my radial symmetry, and I'm going to press R to reset the placement of this. I'm going to switch to, just pressing tab, switch to add. And I'm just going to add the kind of like a little thing at the bottom so that this thing can hold this dial. Something like that. And again, if you don't want to kind of like merge it together, because this is one thing that is important to think about when you are going to export it or play with, textures or materials. It's easier to just drag and drop into different objects. So right click, new layer, that's it.
Yeah. Do you find you use that a lot, Pablo? Like adding to a new layer just to keep everything separated out?
Yeah. This is probably the easiest way. And the example that I show you with the crab, all of those beats, before I merge them together, they're individual pieces.
Yeah.
I'll try to show you that. So what I'll do now is the same thing. Just double click maybe on this one so that it remembers what I had. And I'm just going to move this one up, scale it up. I'm going to make some kind of something here at the top just so that maybe I can drag and drop like a decal or something in textures. Something like this. And maybe let's give it a chamfer. This is something that I haven't used. So for the edge, look how cool this is.
Ah, nice.
So I'll push this in. Again, if I press a space bar now, it's going to add it to the bottom object. So I don't want that. Right click, layer, and then escape. Oh, sorry. I forgot to... Let's put it again. I forgot to press the space bar. So this is just like the editing of the object. I'm pressing space bar. There we go. All right. So now I have these three objects that I can just select them all, right click, group them. So I can select only one and move it around. and that's
It's
it.
a bit
So
of a
I'm gonna
juggle.
put this.
It's a bit of a juggle between adding it to a new layer, and then grouping so it all comes. So it's like that, similar to what you'd find in 3D programs, right? In the hierarchy and in terms of grouping things and being able to move full objects.
Yeah, I guess the thing that you would expect from other applications is to have like some kind of like outliner where you see all the hierarchy, but I think it's complicating things a little bit. I mean, this is so much easier to just like, leave it like that. And if you want to scope in, you just double click on the on the group, and then you can edit this if you wanted to.
Just a time check there,
So
Pubs. We've got 10 minutes left, buddy.
All right, I'm going to do a couple more things really quickly just to show you. So that's it. If I want to duplicate an object, Control D to duplicate. So now I have two dials like so, right? And I want to add something just so that this doesn't sit right into the emptiness or like this flat thing. So double clicking on the base, that gives me access to edit this bit. So I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to press the tab bar, and I'm going to move this roughly there. It doesn't have to be precise. This is something that, again, you might think, oh, this is going to be easier to do it in a different software because it's not as precise. But that's not the point, I think, of Modeler, or at least not to me. It's just to prototype and get things right. So get things going, really. So I'm just going to hold this, and I'm going to press the spacebar now. So deleted that bit. Maybe I need more resolution, actually, for the bottom. Spacebar, move it. And spacebar, escape. So now we have those indentations happening nicely. I'm going to show you something else that I think would be, another tool that you can use. So let's click on. Actually, let's double click on the base, and let's click on the cube. Push that up, and I'm going to do this really quickly because it's basically following the same thing. We're going to create a kind of like a slider thing. I'm going to press the tab on my keyboard just to subtract this bit, and I'm going to play around with the placement and the thickness of it. Maybe push it towards the. This is fine. And I'm going to use this round tool as well that we've been using, and maybe the fillet as well, just to make it nice and round. And I'm going to push this up, press the space bar. So I deleted this thing. Now, this is another thing that I use all the time. So once I have this shape, or I'm happy with this, what I'll do is I'm going to continue edit this like so and create kind of like the rail with the thing would be. And so it's exactly using the same thing. I'm going to push this down, press the spacebar, and from this same object, I'm going to create the dial. So I'm going to push this maybe up a bit, scale it generally, like uniformly, push this down. I'm going to hold the Control key to push only the top, and now I'm going to switch to add instead of subtract. So I'm going to press tab, and I'm going to right-click and click on New Layer. So I want this bit to be on a separate one. Press the spacebar. Then I'm going to push this up to create the actual slider thing.
Yeah, little button, yeah. So you're just reutilizing the same tool over and over again. That's cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. So something like this. In fact, let's go ahead and right-click, add a new layer, press the spacebar. So now I have this and this that I can do a little group. So my slider is just sort of like going like this.
Yeah, cool.
And I can reutilize all the objects that I like that have some
details,
something that I like. So I'm going to take this one, Control D to duplicate. Let's rotate it, holding Shift to go 90 degrees. Let's go around here. And this time I'm going to right-click, subtraction in booleans, and I'm just going to add a little bit of...
that's cool. Yeah, clever.
Something like this. I mean, it's not perfect, but again, it's kind of cool. And again, press a space bar just to apply it. I made a mistake. So I applied it to the entire thing. So you see how I'm also subtracting from this one. So I need to go into this thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Again. There we go. All right. Sorry. Let's go back to where I was. All right. So select the one that I want to subtract this from so that this little bit here at the bottom or at the end doesn't get subtracted. Right click, apply it. There we go. We just delete that one now. So nothing happened to this one. And now we have this nice... I should have increased the resolution. That's about it. Now, do we have time for one more thing? Do you see how easy and fast this is?
Yeah, it's great. That's amazing. I love this. The retro feel of it. I think we have got one more time. Flynn's not yelling at me just yet. So
yeah, cool. So let's do kind of like a speaker, like really quickly, just to show you something else. So if you click on, let's say, the base that has plenty of resolution, you can use the other tools like warp or smooth or things that you probably are more familiar with in a sculpting application. So you can totally do that just to add. Oh no,
that
it
was
was like
Flynn.
too much.
That's Flynn working his power, going,
That's
guys.
Flynn.
You're making me sweat here.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's good. Like the recovery tool is pretty awesome anyway.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
So I'm going to double click again, and I'm going to use the move tool or the warp tool. The warp tool is amazing because you can just take this and move things around like that. And I have the circle or the sphere, the cube, and the pill. I'm going to select the sphere, right? And you see how it hovers over. And then you have this hardness. So right now it's 100% hard. So whatever I move is going to be pretty strong.
Wow. Yeah.
Or I can reduce that hardness and make more like a soft thing, right? Yeah. The cool thing about this, and I think this is one of the most amazing things about the software, is that you can take these move tools or this move warp tool and press the G key on your keyboard, and you bring in a gizmo. So you have this sort of like transparent thing, and you can literally reset the rotation, scale this down, and just place this whatever you want before you actually applied any movement. So I'm going to reduce this a tiny bit like so. I'm going to make this not super hard, but you see there is like a tiny sphere inside. So the one in the middle or the one inside is the one that is going to be 100% hard. And then from that one to the one at the bottom, at the outside, is going to be kind of like a gradient effect. So I'm going to push this like so. And now that I'm happy with the shape and the placement of my move brush or my move tool, I'm going to press the spacebar, and you see that disappears. And now I can move it around. So I can push this up like so.
Oh, how cool is that?
And that's it. I'm going to press the escape bar, and obviously I can increase the resolution. And in fact, you can double click to go in, press the shift key, and that's the shortcut to access the smooth brush, and I can smooth this out. Right?
Just get the
Maybe that's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And just to wrap it up, if I want to do that speaker, I'm going to use the same tool that I showed you before with the repetition or the radial symmetry. So I'm going to click on new clay brush, tube. I'm going to do this very quick, because it's repeating some of the things that I already showed you. Scale this down, up, like so. Right click, repetition. I'm going to go for 8. And then I'm going to push this one to the side. There we go. So we have this. I'm going to press the space bar, and then I'm going to move in, reduce this to, let's say, actually, let me increase the resolution a bit. Space bar, move in. Reduce the amount to maybe 5. Press the spacebar, and let's go ahead and do one more. No, actually, that's fine. All right, so now we have this object. Again, same thing. I like to work with the, like in a column type of thing.
Couple of minutes left. Yep.
Yep, just move it here.
Yep.
Scale, right click,
holes.
Boolean, select the base, right click, apply, and delete that thing. And that's about it.
That is it. Love it.
And
so cool.
Again, it's kind of like similar, but you see this is exactly the same thing as you've seen.
Yeah.
In fact, they're like easier, right? Just pulling and pushing. And yeah, so happy to take any questions if we have time for it, or leave it ready for tomorrow and export this out.
I think there's no questions in the chat, so I think we're all good. Flynn's probably happy that we're finishing on time. Hey, that was really, really great, Pablo. Even for me, like I've used Modeler before, but understanding some of those concepts, it just you really demystified a lot of them for me. So thank you so much.
Sweet.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing this get textured. For me, that's the most fun part. But
yeah,
maybe we can talk a little bit about jumping into the VR headset and what that process is and stuff for tomorrow as well. We'll see how much time we have. But,
yeah, for sure. So I think I'm just gonna leave it as it is right now, and maybe from now until from now to tomorrow, I might add some other things so that it's more interesting to texture. But I'll do exactly the same process to add and subtract things, and I'll show you how to do the export and all that stuff for the textures tomorrow.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Pablo.
Cool.
I'll see you for lunch.
Thank you so much,
I'll see you for lunch.
Yeah, I'll see you for lunch, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Flynn.
Cool.